Efforts are underway to increase the bulk water allocation to the rainwater system to help with the water issues in Gauteng. Water and Sanitation Minister Senzo Mchunu says this is an emergency measure to assist the province's metros, districts and local municipalities. Now, infrastructure also and maintenance issues have also been issues that have also been raised during this crisis. And of course, we've seen this being raised over the years as well. Let's speak to Dr. Sean Phillips, who's the Water and Sanitation Department's Director General. Thank you so much for your time. Let's start by, you briefly telling us what came out of the meeting today.
Thank you very much, and good evening to you and all your viewers. It was a meeting between the Minister and the Department and the relevant municipalities served by Rand Water and Rand Water. The meeting discussed the causes of the current challenges with supply of water to certain high-level areas, particularly in Johannesburg, and what needs to be done to address those causes. And consensus was reached. It was agreed that a water room would be established there, headed by Rand Water, to improve coordination between Rand Water and Joburg Water in particular, and the other municipalities and the department. There are already regular meetings between Rand Water and the municipalities, but the emphasis is here in this difficult situation for them to improve their coordination around communication to the public in particular, to inform them of the causes of the problem and what should be done about it, and especially to mobilize the public to use less water in this time where there's a heat wave in the area and where people are using a lot more water to irrigate their gardens and their grass, which has resulted in a big spike in demand in water from Rand Water, and which has resulted in them finding it difficult to fill the reservoirs, which in turn means that people living in high-lying areas are not able to get water because the water levels in the reservoirs aren't high enough in order to be able to provide enough pressure to get the water to the high-lying areas. So,
Dr. Phillips, I was speaking to some experts tonight who say that, though, that this was a perfect storm. The infrastructure in some of these municipalities was way past its design duty 20 years ago, and they're not surprised that things have gotten to this particular point. Are these entities also taking responsibility for what we are seeing happening here versus only just saying that it's the issue around consumption?
Yes, you're correct. Your experts were correct in saying that it's a perfect storm. There's been various factors which have unfortunately occurred at the same time, coincidentally. The first is that, as you know, we've had very severe load shedding, and that has made it difficult for both Rand Water and Joburg Water to pump sufficient water into the reservoirs. Secondly, there's been this heat wave that I mentioned, which has resulted in a spike in demand, particularly by people using more water to water their gardens and their grass. And thirdly, the rains have not yet arrived. Normally, it would have started raining yet. And normally, when it starts raining, people switch off their sprinkler systems because they don't need to sprinkle their gardens and their grass because they're watered by the rain. So all of these factors have occurred at the same time, resulting in a situation where there isn't sufficient water in the reservoirs. Normally, while there are more severe problems in other municipalities elsewhere in the country, normally in Johannesburg, the water supply is fairly stable, relatively stable. So unfortunately, we have had this situation now where there is this unfortunate confluence of a number of negative factors which has resulted in the current situation. And we're asking citizens in Johannesburg in particular to heed the call of the municipality to not use excessive amounts of water, to not water their grass now during this period, to wait until the rains start to fall, and then to turn off their sprinkler systems so that there can be enough water to fill the reservoirs so that the people in the high-lying areas can get water.
So, Dr. Phillips, that's one thing, though, but how much more of a messaging has to talk to those that are also responsible for the leaks? Because even the minister's statement this afternoon points to some kind of issues around there, and dare I even say negligence, because it looks like somebody's sleeping on the job. We've been hearing about water leaks for years now, and even the minister saying, while South Africa is experiencing water scarcity right now, it's shocking that there are individuals, or we're still losing water to water leaks, which is something that should not be happening.
Yes, it's a good point. And we would have a lot more water available and a lot more water in the reservoirs if there weren't leaks in Johannesburg's water distribution system. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that it's because people are sleeping on the job. We have huge backlogs of replacement of infrastructure. Our infrastructure is very old, particularly in many parts of Johannesburg. And there's a huge backlog of rehabilitation and replacement of old infrastructure. Now, to address that backlog requires everybody to work together. It requires all the citizens to pay their water bills. It requires people to stop doing things like illegal connections so that the municipality can have sufficient money to do the necessary maintenance and repair work. We are also talking to Johannesburg and to other cities about trying to get the private sector more involved in financing the necessary rehabilitation and repair work. So where additional private sector money can be brought in to replace the aging infrastructure, which will result in savings through reduced losses, and the private sector can get a return on their investment through those savings. But we're not unique in South Africa with this problem. In many countries in the world, including even in the United States, they have a problem of old infrastructure and a backlog of maintenance and rehabilitation of old infrastructure.
And Dr. Phillips, I don't know, if you might be able to indulge us here, because there is, there seems to be things communicated at panic point here. And I'm saying this from Rand Water's point of view, because it came when the alarm bells were ringing that the systems are constrained. People must, use water sparingly, think of what's going on, try not to, waste water. But is there an automated indication at some of these reservoirs that we're running low? Now the system signals an alarm goes off, we're switching off. How does it all work? Because it looks like the messaging comes when it's desperate times.
Yes, there is normally a system like that, and normally Rand Water would provide warnings far in advance. But as we both indicated earlier, there's been an unfortunate simultaneously occurrence of a number of events. Importantly, being the very severe load shedding, which we didn't expect. That severity of load shedding, which resulted in the water levels in the reservoirs becoming very low because Joburg Water and Rand Water couldn't pump sufficient water, and in addition, the heat wave. And Rand Water, very unfortunately, at the same time, had a couple of failures on some of its electrical equipment and mechanical equipment, it is now repaired. So I think this situation arose with this sudden increase in the number of communities in Johannesburg not having water for prolonged periods of time because of this unfortunate number of events which all occurred at the same time.
Yeah.
But the system is now stabilizing. And if the citizens of Johannesburg can please heed the request from Joburg Water to not to stop using water to clean and to cook, etc., but just not to use water excessively, particularly not to unnecessarily water their gardens and their lawns during this difficult period, then there can be enough water for everyone to have water and for the high-lying areas not to be in the very difficult situation that they are currently, where they're going for days and sometimes weeks without water because the reservoirs can't be filled enough.
All right, Dr. Phillips, thank you so much for your time. One hopes that those calls are heeded, and also the water room will check in with your office to see how it's all unfolding. As you say that the issues around communication also needs to be improved there. But thank you so much for your time. Do appreciate it. That is Dr. Sean Phillips, Water and Sanitation Department Director General.